Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Patten. I am one of 4 career counselors for the university, and so they keep us very busy. I'm one of 4 for 40,000 students, so we cover a lot of territory. I'm here today to talk about resumes and CVs, and when it's appropriate to use each of those. Basically, here are the components that you need to think about what the purpose of the document is. So without any further ado, I'll get started. And this is an overview of what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to talk about the purpose of each document, what the steps are to basically assemble each of these documents, general guidelines. So these are the basic things you want to think about as you're assembling your resume or CV. Specific components, how to do references, cover letters, and resources that we have available for you, both in the CIC, our Career Information Center library, and online through our website. For those of you who don't know, we are located on the 4th floor of the Student Union, Suite 411. I tell students we are centrally located, if not conveniently located. You have to actually go to the 4th floor, but we are centrally located on campus. The purpose of both of these documents is to interest the reader, whether that's an employer or a graduate program. Whoever is reading this document, you're giving them information to show how you're qualified or why they want to talk to you. So it's to interest the employer. It is a marketing piece. You are marketing your knowledge, skills, and experience to the reader. I'm big on metaphors, and I know sometimes that can be things that students struggle with, but I always tell students that a resume is a snapshot. It's a quick picture of you. It does not tell me everything, but it tells me very specific information in regards to its purpose. I advise students when you're applying for a specific position, you want to read the position description, pull out the key words that are in there, and mirror that language in your document. 2 reasons. 1, if they're asking for specific knowledge, skills, experience, you want to demonstrate how you have that. Whether that's from coursework you've had, projects you've done, research, it doesn't matter where it comes from. It matters you can show them, yes, I can do that, and here's how. The idea of it being a snapshot means that, again, you're giving them information in a format that is easy for them to digest. So I can't have in a snapshot a full-on shot and a 3/4 shot and a profile shot in the same picture. Each of those is me, but not each of those tells the reader what they want to know. In that snapshot, you get to decide the composition of that picture. What information gets foregrounded and what gets backgrounded. You get to decide the detail that you go into. So make sure, as you're assembling these documents, that you're addressing the reader. Whether this is for an employer or for a graduate program, make sure you're answering the questions they're asking. It is an ongoing process, and this is really important. A resume or a CV is not a static document. You don't create it and there it is. As you grow and change and develop, as you add new skills, new experience, your resume or CV needs to reflect that. So it's something that you need to update on a regular basis. Generally speaking, resumes are used in business and industry. Okay? This is what you want to think of with the resume. Okay? A resume, the employer wants to cut to the chase. Give me the essential information. Give me the information that answers the questions that I've posed in the position description. That's all. More is not better. Sometimes more is just more. I want to know the information that I'm seeking, and you need to give me that information as succinctly as possible. And I'll talk a little bit more about government resumes that is for the federal government in a moment. But I want to get on to talking about a CV. A CV is going to provide more in-depth information. Typically, in this country, CVs are used for either academic or research positions. These are organizations or institutions that want to know more information. It's not just your skills and your experience. They really want to know What's your interest in this program or this position? How is it that you're qualified? It is a detailed document. You're going to tell me about the degrees you have, and your research interests, and your teaching experience, and publications and presentations, etc. So it's going to have much more information. They are typically used in academic, scientific, or research positions. If you're submitting documents for publication in a peer-reviewed journal, you're probably going to include a copy of your CV. So the basic idea here is, if a resume is a snapshot, a CV is a short video, something you see on YouTube. It has more information. There's still a clear theme to it, but it includes much more information than you would get in a quick snapshot. For both of these documents, you need to sit down and take stock. Plato's dictum holds true: know thyself. You need to know what your knowledge, skills, and experience are, and how they fit the purpose of the document. So know what it is you're looking for, know how you're qualified, be able to demonstrate how you're prepared to step into this position. Look at where you've been successful in work, projects, research. Really think in terms of how you can highlight those qualities and those experiences that are most crucial for the reader. Determine which document to use. Again, if you're applying for a position in business and industry, a resume is probably going to be preferred. Now, one of the things that we tell undergraduates is that a resume is a single page. As graduate students, it is permissible to have more than one page. But again, more is not always better. You really want to think in terms of the content of the document. And this is important because you may have lots of experience, but if that experience doesn't relate to the purpose of the document, whether, again, that's graduate school or a research position or whatever, then you're telling people things they don't want to know. Always tell the employer what they want to know, nothing more. I oftentimes tell students, if an employer requests just a resume, they are using that document as a filter. You've got what we want, you don't got what we want. If they ask for a resume and a cover letter, they want a little bit more information. Typically, they want to see how your written communication skills are. And we have in our resume guidelines, in the back, a template for a cover letter. So I tell students, just follow the template, it'll be fine. But the whole idea here is be clear about which document you're using and why. Know your audience, okay? If you're applying for a faculty position at a university, they want to know about your research background. So make sure you're telling them that information. Make sure you're demonstrating to them how you fit with their program. So it's important for you to do your homework in advance. What's the nature of their program? What is their standing academically as far as other institutions? Really think in terms of preparing yourself and demonstrating to the reader how you're prepared. Emphasize your skills and accomplishments, and by all means, get feedback. We advise students, bring your resume or CV to us to critique. We have walk-in hours Monday through Friday, it varies by day of the week, but where you can just bring in a resume or CV, and we'll sit down and tell you what's good, what maybe needs some work. I generally advise students, if you're writing a CV, show it to faculty in your program, because they have a pretty clear idea of what expectations are in your field. We are great generalists. We know a lot of information about a lot of fields. But there are certain conventions in some fields that we may not be aware of. So make sure you're talking to people in your field and get feedback from them on your resume or CV. General guidelines. 1 to 3 pages for a resume. You can have an unlimited number of pages for a CV. But, again, keep it concise. I know faculty here at the university who have a multiple-page CV, approximately 4 or 5 pages. They also have a single-page resume. They know how to edit that information down to what's essential when they need to do that. And this is a skill. One of the things I tell students, like interviewing, it's like any other skill. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. So take some time to practice. Don't try and do something last minute with either a resume or CV, because you're shortchanging yourself. Assuming these documents are printed, they should be printed on neutral paper. White, ivory, light gray, or light blue. Nothing gaudy, nothing bright, nothing fluorescent. You want to make sure that the reader's attention is drawn to those things that you want to stand out. You do that by using bold, italics, underlining. And we have samples again in our resume guidelines that demonstrate how people do this. The reason why you want to use these things is that the typical resume gets looked at for about 60 seconds. You got a minute. You want that essential information to jump off the page at them. Make sure that it's easy to transmit the information to the reader that you think is important. Avoid personal pronouns, so it's not me and my. We talk about using action verbs. Tell me what you did and what the result was. This is also true when you get to the interview. You want to describe what you've done. Give me concrete examples that show what you're capable of doing for the employer. Be consistent in your format. I shouldn't see a lot of changes as far as have it in a consistent font, make sure that it's easy to read, and have your strongest selling points at the top. Now this is a point that oftentimes students don't get, because we talk about doing a resume in reverse chronological order. So the most recent thing to the least recent thing. And what I tell students is that's correct, that it should be most recent to least recent by heading. So by the categories that you include in your document. For example, let's say that a year ago you had an internship that relates directly to the position you're applying for. But for the last 6 months you've been waiting tables to pay the rent. Tell me about relevant experience, that internship, and then tell me about other experience, the waiting tables. The whole idea here is make it as easy as possible for the reader to get the essential information quickly and conveniently. Okay, so the key components for a resume are, first, your heading. This is your contact information. Your name should be large and bold. You want to stand out, okay? Then, assuming you print an objective on your resume, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, you would have your objective, then your education, and I always tell students, education's up there near the top because without the degree, they're not going to talk to you. So you want to make sure you let them know, yes, I have this level of education. Then you are going to talk about either experience or skills, depending on the nature of the position. Let's say, for example, that you're reading a position description, and the first thing that the employer is asking for is software that you know, equipment you've worked with, hardware you're familiar with. They want to know about skills. So front load that information. If, on the other hand, they want to know about the nature of your experience and what you've done, you would talk about experience first. You can include any number of other headings or categories in the document as long as they are relevant to the purpose of the document. All right, moving right along. The same thing is true with a CV. You're going to start with your heading. Then you're going to tell me about your objective. Give me a profile or a summary of qualifications. Personally, and this is me talking, not career services, I don't like summaries of qualifications because typically they don't tell me what I want to know. I want to know specific information as it relates to the position you're applying for. And this is true with both resumes and CVs. Give me that information that clearly demonstrates how you're prepared to step into this position. After your objective, again, you're going to talk about your education, any special training, fellowships, postdocs, certifications, licensures, etc. And the whole idea is there's a lot of things you can include in a CV. You can talk about experience by categories, research experience, teaching experience, clinical experience, etc. Publications, presentations, etc. The whole idea here is a CV can include a lot of information, but make sure that what you're including speaks to the position you're applying for. Also, if you have inventions or patents, professional associations in which you're a member, community service, references, credentials, etc. The one difference, the one really crucial difference between a resume and a CV is, in a CV, your references can be part of the CV. Typically with a resume, your references are going to be a separate document. They're going to be printed on the same type of paper that you print your resume on, but unless the employer asks for references, don't give them. On both of these documents, your heading, your name should be large and bold. You can have both a current and a permanent address. Make sure that whatever you put down is a mailing address. If I'm going to drop something in the mail, then it's going to get to you in short order. I advise students, especially at the end of second semester, you're going home for the summer and you still have your local address, and it's going to take a week to get there. You're really doing yourself a disservice. So make sure that you have an address on there and that you let the reader, again, employer, grad school, whatever, know where to reach you. With the CV, you can have an office address and office phone number on there as well. For either of these, your phone number should have your area code included and should have a professional sounding voicemail message. Okay? Nothing cute, nothing obscene. You want to be taken seriously, so have a serious voicemail response on your phone. An email address, again, professional, your university address is perfectly acceptable. If you have a website, if you blog, if there's something else that's pertinent to the purpose of the document, you would also include that. Here are some sample headings. And again, all of these are acceptable. You can see the last one, this person has made a point of conserving space. One of the things I tell students about the resume is that 8.5 by 11 space is valuable real estate. Do not waste it. Don't have a lot of blank space on the page. Lizzie Schloss, who is the person who had actually put this presentation together originally, background is in drama, and so she talks about to use or not to use, that is the question. Here's the thing to think about with an objective. It is entirely up to you whether or not you choose to print an objective on your resume or CV. But philosophically, you should always start with an objective. An objective functions like a thesis statement when you're writing a paper. Once you know what your objective is, everything that follows in that document should go back to support it. If it doesn't belong in the document. So what this does is it helps you to filter out, oh, these are things I need to tell them, this stuff they don't need to know. It should be concise, it should be targeted, it should be clear about the type of position that you are seeking. And here are some sample objectives. A management internship at a community service agency, program development position working with geriatric clients, a tax professional with a national accounting firm, a faculty position in an engineering program at a public research institution utilizing my research skills and teaching experience. Notice that each of these is a single sentence. This is really key. An objective is a single statement. It is not a paragraph, it is not an abstract, it is direct and to the point. Next, we're going to talk about education. For a resume, you're going to include educational institutions or training programs you've attended, major, minor, area of concentration, certainly the name of the institution. Your anticipated graduation date. Oftentimes I have students who want to tell me how long they've been at the institution. Employers don't care how long you've been at the institution. They care about when you're available to start working for them. So make sure you tell me your anticipated completion date. Again, your GPA, if it's a 3.5 or higher, never round up. And I tell students all the time, don't spend a lot of energy on this. Students worry that their GPA isn't good enough. You're in graduate school. You've done well enough to get here. You're probably going to be fine, and you probably don't need to include this on your resume or CV. I have worked most of my life in higher education. I have never been asked by a prospective employer what my GPA is, and I don't put it on my resume. What you want to think about is this. If it's good, put it on there. If it's not, leave it off, and don't spend a lot of energy worrying about it. If you have a thesis, relevant coursework, research you've done, again, certifications or licensure, scholarships, or how you finance your education, these are things that you might include. So here's a sample. We have someone with a Master of Arts degree in history from the University of Colorado Boulder. Their anticipated graduation date they got their bachelor's degree from here at the U of A, and when they graduated, their major GPA. Next, we have someone with a Bachelor of Science with honors in microbiology with a minor in classics, happen to have attended Yale University, and they financed their education through scholarships and part-time employment. Why would I want to include that? Well, for some employers, it demonstrates that you have some ambition and you're willing to get in there and work. And so it's not a bad thing to include. It's not essential, but there's nothing wrong with it. Last, we have someone with a Master of Science in Speech, Language, and Hearing Sciences, anticipated graduation date, and their bachelor's degree from the University of Washington, same type of program, along with their graduation date and their GPA. Now, for a CV, it's going to be a little different. And again, it's still going to be educational institution programs that you've attended, all of your degrees. So if you did your bachelor's degree in one place and a master's somewhere else and gone on for a PhD, you're going to tell me about each of those. Typically, if you've got a PhD, you're going to give me a brief, and I mean brief abstract of your dissertation along with your advisor. Same thing with your master's thesis and advisor. Name of the institution, anticipated graduation date, and you definitely want to let them know who your advisors are for your dissertation. So here is someone with their PhD in civil engineering, title of their dissertation, who their advisor was, master's in civil engineering from University of Waterloo, Canada, their thesis, advisor, and their bachelor's degree. Notice it's still pretty concise given the level of education they have. Okay, when it comes to experience, experience is experience is experience. It doesn't matter if it's things you did as a research assistant or things you've done in industry. You want to think in terms of, I have specific skills, I have specific experience, these are things that I can do, because that's what the employer wants to know. So, employment, full or part-time internships, summer jobs, volunteer or service learning. Oftentimes students want to discount these things. Volunteering counts. When I first graduated from my master's program, I graduated at an odd time of the year because I was in a program that was on a quarter system. And I had a couple good interviews, but no job offers. So I called up someone at a local university where I was living at the time and said, I would be willing to volunteer 10 hours a week if you got someplace where you can use me. It took a little while to set it up, but that turned into a quarter-time position, which was then a springboard to a full-time job somewhere else. Volunteering counts. So if it's appropriate to the position, make sure you're including that. Again, projects or research, clubs or organizations, especially leadership roles, especially things in your field. Okay? So professional associations, opportunities for you to demonstrate what you've done. In a CV, again, these can be categorized by research experience, teaching experience, clinical, administrative. So here's a sample. Graduate Research Assistant for Dr. Robert Smith. The dates, they're using capillary electrophoresis to characterize separation behavior of charged biosurfactants and electric field. They explored the applicability of specific biosurfactant in micellar electrokinetic chromatography applications. I'm not going to stumble over the rest of these. But you can see they've got discrete things they're talking about. By the way, we suggest for both resumes and CVs, if you're going to use bullet points, 3 to 5, no more than 5. After 5 bullet points, it becomes a big block of text. People don't read it. And so what we want you to do is give them the essential information, demonstrate how you're qualified for the position, but you also want to leave them wanting more. I oftentimes tell students, the other metaphor I like to use with the resume is, it's an appetizer. It's enough to pique their interest, to whet their appetite. But you also want them to say, okay, this is an interesting person, we want to know more, because that's what moves you from resume to interview. Okay, moving right on. Here's another example. Again, this person is talking about, in reverse chronological order, clinical experience they've had in different environments. And notice they've got very specific actions that they've taken in these. So first we have clinician at Cornerstone Hospital. They're conducting bedside swallow evaluations. They're devising management plans, provided dysphagia treatment for medical complex caseload, including tracheotomized and ventilated patients. So it's very specific. And this is what you want to think about. You want to give specific content that demonstrates what you're capable of doing for this prospective employer. Again, this is targeted where this person has talked about clinical experience they've had as intern, and then other experience that relates to what they're doing. Because again, research, teaching, think in terms of the field and what an employer is looking for. For a CV, we have sample experience here where this person is a research associate. They were conducting research for sponsored projects by applying analytical, numerical, and experimental methods in geomechanics, emphasizing nonlinear finite element procedures, constitutive modeling, and applications of dynamics of porous media. They talk about what they were involved with in this NSF-sponsored research project. Again, then they go on and they talk about another research assistant position again. The idea here is, again, you want to give action. Tell me about what you did and what the result was, because that's what's going to capture the reader's attention. Here's one, again, continuing from that previous one, where they're talking about teaching experience and what the environment was, who they're teaching, content. And other experience. So the idea with the CV is it's going to be more extensive, but it still has a clear theme. It still has a focus. And that's, I think, one of the most essential things. Oftentimes I will see CVs where people are kind of jumping around. Make sure that there's a clear progression to the information that you're including. Skills in both of these should be relevant to the purpose of the document. They can be skills that you've gained from classes you've taken, from specific employment, internships, volunteer work, again, any of these things. But the idea is, tell them about skills that are relevant to the purpose of the document. You don't need to tell them about skills that aren't related. So make sure the content is appropriate to the purpose. So first, we have someone who's talking about analytical and interpersonal skills. Again, they're talking about working in administration of an international corporation. Talking about teamwork skills. Talking about developing and implementing strategies. And then language skills that they have. The second set that we have here, notice that they are very specific technical skills. Reality is, I showed students this on a resume. That's what's going to get the person hired. So if you're applying for a position and they want to know that you have these kinds of skills, make sure you're front-loading that information. And last but not least, we have skills related to computers and languages. I will tell you that it is a good idea to categorize your skills like you see in the last example, because it makes it much easier for the employer to read that and know that you have what they're looking for. Again, here's one where someone's talking about specific laboratory equipment they have experience with, computer programs, and other training as related to working in a lab. Like I said, I like it when they're categorized this way. It makes it much easier to find the information. There are any number of other categories that may be included. Again, I told you I'm not big on summaries, but leadership, campus organizations, professional memberships. I strongly encourage students, join professional organizations in your field while you're still a student. First, student memberships are, relatively speaking, inexpensive. Certainly they're more inexpensive than when you're a professional paying those dues. The second reason for this is that this is a great way to network. Networking is still the #1 way people find jobs. So take advantage of making connections with other people in your field. If you have the opportunity to go to professional conferences, whether they're local, regional, or national, take advantage of that, because that's a good way to make yourself more visible. Look at opportunities to be involved in activities in community service, things, again, that are related to your field. Here we have an example of some of these categories. First, we have professional memberships, then achievements, awards, and nominations, and last but not least, leadership activities. Really think in terms terms of the purpose of the document and highlight those things to the prospective reader that demonstrate you're prepared to step into this position. Whether you're talking about specific qualifications, and here someone's talking about teaching in a classroom as an English as a second language instructor. Summary of qualifications is someone working with specific scientific skills and in a particular field. The idea here is make sure that you're showing the reader what you're capable of doing. You can talk about research and teaching experience and interests in a CV. You can also do a profile. Now, I much prefer a profile to a summary of qualifications. And the reason for it is this gives me more specific information as far as how you're qualified to step into this position. So they're talking about performing meticulous data analysis for original research. They're talking about creating innovative and original database for National Agricultural Library. Then they go on and they talk about their writing skills and about teaching both at a Research One institution and at a community college. So it shows the breadth of their experience. The idea here is, again, give them a picture of what you're capable of doing for their organization. Professional activities, certainly, whether it's membership in an organization or specific roles you've played. Again, leadership roles are great. If you are including publications, and certainly you would if you have them in a CV, they should go in chronological order. If you have scholarly books or monographs that you have chapters in, include those. Referee journal articles, again, whether they're published or they're in their final form prior to publication. Electronic peer-reviewed publications as well. If they are foreign publications, you should provide an English translation. So here's an example. The person is talking about invited papers, and I always advise students, check the APA manual for proper format, because we've done these, but we're not above making mistakes, so pay attention to that. So, discussion of factors which affect reliable computer implementation of hierarchical models. Invited paper, workshop on reliability and computational mechanics, Austin, Texas, October 1984. The whole idea with publication is, again, make it easy for them to find this. If someone is going to go and read the article and they want to know more, make sure that they can access that conveniently. Again, other referee publications, and the first one, to be published, Journal of Engineering Mechanics, ASCE, February 2000. So nothing wrong with putting things in that you've submitted and you know it's going to be published. Even if it hasn't been published yet, you can include those. Here we have an example for something from the humanities. This person is talking about specific publications they've had in various journals, as well as poems they've had in other publications. When it comes to doing references, we recommend a clear format with this. If you're doing a CV, this can just continue on the page. If you're doing a resume, your references should be on a separate page. These should be people who can either speak to your foundational knowledge. In other words, here's somebody who knows what I know. They can speak to my knowledge base. Or they can speak to your professional work ethic, what you're capable of doing. So it should be faculty members, someone who has supervised you, someone who has, again, they can speak to what you're capable of doing for this prospective employer. Think in terms of making it easy for references to say nice things about you. We generally advise students, if you're asking for a reference, it's a good idea to give a copy of your CV or resume to the person who's going to give you a reference. Just make it easy for them. These are not personal references, so it's not Uncle Joe or Aunt Sally. Again, it's people who can speak to your professional acumen or your work ethic. Always, always, always ask before you list someone as a reference. And here we have the sample list of references. So this is for Chris Smith with his contact information, references, name, position, mailing address, phone number, email address. And 3 to 5 is typical. Now here we have a sample CV. This person's talking about their doctoral education as well as their undergraduate education. They've got the title of their dissertation along with their committee and a brief abstract of their dissertation. Then they talk about their research experience, their teaching experience, again, specific courses and when they taught them, other experience related to teaching and research, publications, publications in progress, presentations, honors and awards, specific service that they've done, professional affiliations, and references. So you can see all of this information, 4 brief pages. Here we have another example. This person has chosen to do a summary of qualifications. They've got their PhD along with their bachelor's degree. This is clearly set up as a resume. It is not a CV because they haven't told me about their dissertation title and what they're doing. But they are telling me about related research experience and teaching experience, as well as other specific lab skills, activities and service, awards, presentations, publications. One of the things that's a challenge with doing either a resume or a CV is editing. Both of these documents require that you do the filtering to tell the prospective reader how you meet their qualifications. The basic thing you want to think about is you want to demonstrate how you meet the qualifications that they've put forth and what you have to offer that's unique. I oftentimes tell students, human resources people and admissions officers for academic programs typically want to know the same information. They don't call it the same thing. Human resources folks want to know, do you have the knowledge, skills, experience to do this job? Admissions officers for academic programs want to know, do you have the academic ability to be successful in this program? Those are in essence the same thing. The second thing that each of them want to know is, what makes you special? I got 20 other people who want this spot. What do you bring to me that they don't? For human resources folks, the reason why they want to know this is they have an enterprise to accomplish. And they need people with different knowledge and skills and experience in order to get that done. For academic programs, academic admissions officers want to build the strongest cohort that they can. And you do that by having people with different knowledge and skills and experience, different perspective on things. Because you don't just learn from your faculty, you learn from one another in the program. So the whole idea here is you want to communicate in each of these documents, here's how I meet the qualifications for this position. Oh, and by the way, here's what I have that somebody else doesn't. This is especially important if you're applying for academic positions with a college or university. Because you want to know about this particular department as well as the institution. How is the institution ranked nationally? How is the department ranked? Is the chair of the department's specialty the same as yours? In which case, if it's a small program, they may not be looking for you. They may be looking for someone with a different area of expertise. So it's important to do your homework and to demonstrate in these documents how you best meet the needs of the organization. One of the things we talk about in addition to having a list of references is letters of recommendation. I tell students, my rule of thumb on this is 6 weeks. What does that mean? It means that at least 6 weeks in advance of when that letter is due, you need to be asking someone for that and making it easy for them to give you a letter of recommendation. So first, ask if they can give you a good recommendation. Provide them with a copy of your resume or CV to make sure that, again, they can say nice things about you. Let them know, again, in writing, where this is going and what information the employer is requesting. So make it easy for them, again, to answer the questions the employer has. It's not a bad idea to ask for a copy. Now, sometimes employers want things to be confidential. They don't want you to know what somebody else is saying about you. There are a couple things that I would recommend here. One is we subscribe to a service called Interfolio, and it is a fee for service. So if you want to use this, I believe they charge $25. Your first 3 folios that they send out are free, and then I think it's $5 for each edition. But the idea with Interfolio is you can put any documents in there that you want. You can put your transcripts in there, you can put your dissertation in there, you can put all of this information, including your CV, in there. And when you're applying for something, they will send that information off confidentially. So the nice thing about this is if you're applying for graduate programs, you only have to ask faculty for 1 letter of recommendation, not ask the same faculty member for 6 different letters. So it's a real convenience for students. But make sure that you follow up, because the bottom line is this all falls back on you. In regard to cover letters, again, this is an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you have a clear understanding of what the employer is looking for and demonstrate your writing skills. I'm submitting an application for this position. Again, I've spent most of my adult life in higher education. I know that when you're doing this, you always put the university's position number on every piece of correspondence to make sure it gets to the right place. But you're submitting a letter saying, here are the things that you need to know about me. Here's how I'm qualified for this position. What I tell students is, if a resume is a snapshot, your cover letter is a magnifying glass, where you get to focus in on specific things you want to emphasize to the reader. Same thing is true with a CV. Again, you're going to have a clear theme there, but there may be things that you want to bring out as far as how you're qualified or why you're a better candidate than someone else may be. So tell them why you want to work for them. Tell them how you're going to follow up. Assuming this is printed, and in this day and age so much is done electronically, but assuming it's printed, it should be on the same type of paper that your resume or CV is printed on. We have a variety of resources available for students, and again, 90% of the resources that we have in career services you can access via our website, and it's career.arizona.edu, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. But we have our A resume guidelines, and this document again is available on our website as well as PDF files. But it goes through and it walks you through the process of putting a resume together, and then it has sample resumes as well as a template for a cover letter, a thank you letter, and how to do references. So it's all conveniently put together. We had the same thing as far as putting a CV together, and they have a sample in here, someone who's applying for a faculty position. So I encourage you, look for those resources and make use of them. We also have other information available in print in our Career Information Center library. So we have books with samples for different fields. We also have links on our website. So very quickly, this is what our website looks like. The nice thing about this is it's pretty easy to access this information. Across the top of the page, you'll notice the bar menu. I advise students use that because with each of those tabs, there's a drop down, and it's probably quicker to find the information there than it is any other way on the page. So if we click on student, you can see my profile, register with career services, finding a part-time job, choosing a career, etc. If you go down to resumes, you can also see right above that it's curricula vitae. But from the resumes, there's a drop down. So resume checks, walk-ins, our again, resume and letter writing guide, which is this document. Resume facts. I tell students all the time, frequently asked questions are there for a reason. If you have a question, somebody else has probably had that same question. Check out the FAQs first. It's probably the quickest way to get the information you're looking for. So if we click again on resumes, this is what it's going to show you. The same thing is true with CVs. It's very easy to access. Resume Builder is software that we have on our website. This is actually provided through the main library. But when you access Resume Builder, they have templates for different fields you can go through. And I'm old school, my boss says I'm just old, but I like using Word and setting my own tabs and margins because, again, the resume is a living document. You're going to go back and make changes in this. Sometimes if you have a specific template and you go back to make changes, all the formatting changes. So it's something to be aware of. Again, Resume Builder is a good program, and I strongly recommend if you haven't put a resume together, it's a good thing to start with. Whatever format you choose to use, make sure it's something that's comfortable, that it's easy for you to use, and that you like how that document looks. Formatting a resume is the most personal aspect of putting a resume or CV together because this document represents you, and you want to make sure that that formatting is something that's appropriate to what you're choosing to do. So check out our resume guidelines and our CV guidelines. Bring your resume or CV to Career Services and have us critique it for you. And talk to faculty or professionals in your field and have them look at your document as well to give you feedback. Any questions?